When I first walked into the clinic, everything was designed to impress. The reception smelled faintly of disinfectant and expensive air freshener. The walls were bright, polished, and lined with framed certificates that most patients never stopped to read, but somehow trusted anyway. Soft music played in the background, just loud enough to feel calming. From the outside, it looked like a place where nothing could possibly go wrong. That illusion was intentional. Patients smiled when they checked in. Parents relaxed the moment their children were called inside. People trusted the space before they ever met the dentist. Image did most of the work long before medicine was involved. On my first day, staff proudly showed me around. They spoke more about branding than procedures, about online reviews more than infection control, about how quickly patients could be moved through chairs rather than how safely treatments were performed. Every sentence carried the same unspoken priority: look professional, appear efficient, don't slow things down. It didn't take long for me to notice what wasn't being shown. Certain drawers were always closed. Some equipment looked older than it should have been. Sterilization routines felt rushed, optimized for speed rather than caution. Items that should have been single-use were handled with uncomfortable familiarity. No one said anything openly, but everyone behaved as if these compromises were normal. I told myself it might just be temporary. Maybe supplies were delayed, maybe upgrades were scheduled. New clinics sometimes struggle at the beginning, I thought, so I stayed quiet and observed. But as days passed, a pattern emerged. The clinic invested heavily in what patients could see: furniture, lighting, uniforms, marketing. But what protected patients when they were vulnerable, when their mouths were open and trust was absolute, was treated as an afterthought. Safety didn't photograph well. Sterilization protocols didn't bring in new clients, and so they were quietly deprioritized. What disturbed me most wasn't the lack of equipment. It was how comfortable everyone seemed with that lack. Assistants adapted without question. Dentists worked around limitations. Management praised speed and volume. The system functioned because professionals absorbed the risk personally, silently correcting flaws so the image remained intact. That was when I understood something important. This clinic didn't value safety. It relied on the conscience of individuals to fake it. And once you see that clearly, you realize you've entered a place where the most dangerous thing isn't incompetence, it's confidence without responsibility. It didn't happen all at once. The risks revealed themselves slowly, in quiet moments between patients, when I reached for tools that should have been there and felt empty space instead. At first, it was easy to dismiss: a delayed delivery, a misplaced tray, a temporary shortage. But those explanations stopped making sense when the same gaps appeared again and again. Sterilization equipment was outdated, pushed far beyond the lifespan it was designed for. Protective gear was rationed, treated like a resource to be conserved rather than a necessity to be replaced. Instruments meant for single use were handled with a familiarity that made my stomach tighten. None of it was dramatic, none of it caused immediate harm. And that was the most dangerous part. Because hidden risks don't announce themselves. They wait. Every procedure required calculation, not just of treatment, but of exposure. Could this be done safely with what was available? What corners had already been cut before the patient sat in the chair? I began to realize that the clinic's smooth operation depended on ignoring questions that shouldn't be ignored. When I asked where certain equipment was, the answers were always casual. We make do. It's been fine so far. No one's complained. Those responses revealed the real philosophy at work. If harm isn't visible, it doesn't count. But safety isn't proven by the absence of disaster. It's proven by preparation for it. And in that clinic, preparation was missing. Quietly, consistently, and dangerously. I didn't raise alarms. I didn't accuse anyone. I followed the proper path, the one professionals are taught to trust. I submitted requests, clearly written and carefully worded, explaining what equipment was missing and why it mattered. I linked each concern to patient safety, not comfort, not convenience. The responses were polite but empty. A nod during meetings. A brief "we'll look into it." Sometimes a smile that suggested the conversation was already over. Nothing was refused outright, but nothing moved forward either. Silence became the answer. Over time, the tone shifted. My concerns were reframed as overcaution. I was told to be more flexible, more practical. Other dentists, they said, managed without making it an issue. Efficiency was praised, speed was rewarded. That's when I understood the dismissal wasn't accidental. It was strategic. As long as my warnings stayed quiet, they could be ignored without consequence. And in that quiet, risk was allowed to grow. There came a point where adapting stopped feeling professional and started feeling dangerous. Every workaround, every quiet adjustment I made to compensate for missing equipment wasn't just helping patients, it was protecting a system that refused to protect them itself. I realized that by being flexible, I was carrying responsibility that didn't belong to me. So I made a deliberate choice. I stopped choosing convenience. I began working exactly as standards required, not as the clinic preferred. If a procedure couldn't be performed safely with the equipment available, I postponed it. If sterilization protocols couldn't be met fully, I documented the reason and refused to proceed. No shortcuts, no improvisation, no silent fixes. It changed everything. Schedules slowed down, appointments stacked up. What had once been invisible became noticeable. Patients started asking why treatments were delayed, and I answered honestly but calmly. I didn't criticize the clinic. I didn't create panic. I simply stated facts. This wasn't rebellion. It wasn't defiance. It was ethics. Choosing ethics meant accepting inconvenience, tension, and misunderstanding. It meant being seen as difficult instead of cooperative. But medicine doesn't exist to make systems comfortable. It exists to protect people when they're most vulnerable. For the first time, I felt aligned with my profession again, even as I sensed the system turning against me for it. Here's the script for your first remaining point. Being pushed out for slowing the system. They didn't fire me. That would have been too honest. Instead, the clinic did what systems do when someone becomes inconvenient. They made staying unbearable. My schedule was quietly restructured. The best appointment slots went to other dentists. Equipment requests I submitted disappeared into inboxes that were never checked. Colleagues who had once been warm became carefully distant, as if association with me carried its own risk. Management stopped consulting me in meetings. When I spoke, responses were polite but brief. The kind of brief that signals your words no longer carry weight. I wasn't disciplined. I wasn't confronted. I was simply reduced. This is how institutions remove people they can't justify removing, not with aggression, but with erosion. Every day felt like a message, you don't fit here anymore. And the message was correct. I didn't fit, not because I lacked skill, but because I refused to pretend that speed mattered more than safety. Being pushed out isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's a calendar that slowly empties, a seat at a table you're no longer invited to pull up to. But here's what they miscalculated. They thought shrinking my role would shrink my resolve. It didn't. No worries. Here's the rewrite. Consequences arrive without my involvement. I didn't plan it. I didn't make a single phone call to set it in motion. That's the thing about real consequences, they don't need your help arriving. I had already accepted that I might never see accountability, that the people who chose profit over patient safety might simply continue, unbothered. I was mentally preparing to leave and close that chapter. Then the clinic's own choices caught up with it. A patient complaint emerged, not from someone I had treated. A routine procedure had gone wrong. The patient asked questions, demanded records, wanted to understand the sterilization process. Management scrambled. Their responses were clumsy and contradictory. Documentation didn't align. The more they tried to smooth it over, the worse it looked. Then came the inspection. Regulators arrived without warning. What they found surprised no one who had worked there: sterilization equipment beyond its certified lifespan. Incomplete records, single-use instruments showing signs of reuse. The clinic that had invested so carefully in lighting, certificates, and soft music could not produce basic documentation proving patients were actually safe. Formal violations were issued. Procedures were suspended. Their name appeared in a published article that no rebranding would ever fully erase. The clinic that pushed me out for slowing the system was now being forced to stop entirely. There is a particular justice in watching something collapse under the weight of its own choices. They assumed patients would stay quiet forever. They were wrong. Everyone assumes the loudest person in the room wins. They're wrong. When the clinic began pushing back against me, my first instinct was to fight, to speak louder, push harder, make sure everyone understood exactly what was happening inside those polished walls. But I learned something that changed how I moved through the entire situation. Silence, chosen deliberately, is not weakness. It is strategy. While management celebrated what they thought was my defeat, I was quietly documenting everything. Every ignored request, every dismissed concern, every meeting where safety was sacrificed for speed. I wasn't loud. I wasn't dramatic. I simply recorded reality with patience and precision. They mistook my silence for surrender. That mistake cost them everything. There is a version of silence that comes from fear, the silence of people who see wrong and say nothing because they are protecting themselves. That silence feeds broken systems. That silence is what allowed this clinic to operate the way it did for as long as it did. But there is another kind of silence entirely. The silence of someone who has already said what needed to be said through proper channels, who has documented what needed to be documented, and who now simply waits, calmly, patiently, for truth to do what truth eventually does. That silence isn't empty. It's loaded. When the investigation arrived, I didn't need to say a word. The records spoke. The documentation spoke. Every request they had ignored became evidence. Every concern they had dismissed became proof. My silence had been building something they couldn't see coming. Here is what I want you to take from this story. You don't always need to win the argument in the room. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to lower your standards, document what you witness, and let the system's own failures become the loudest voice in the space. Corrupt systems depend on your noise. They want you frustrated, reactive, and emotional, because emotional people are easy to discredit. Calm people with records are not. So if you are ever in a place that asks you to compromise what you know is right, don't shout. Don't break. Just document, stay steady, and understand that silence, used correctly, is the most dangerous weapon an ethical person carries. They never saw it coming. And that was always the point.